First of all, welcome to Vietnam.
Thank you.
We are here with Ambassador Andrew, the new ambassador from Australia to Vietnam. So first of all, it's been about a month since you arrived here. How are you finding Vietnam? How are you settling in? And what are your first impressions so far?
Well, thanks, Ollie. To tell you the truth, my head is still spinning. It's only been 4 weeks, but a lot has happened in those 4 weeks. Importantly, our personal effects arrived just last Friday, so the house is a mess, but gradually we will start to make it feel like a home. But we've been very warmly received here in Vietnam. I'm not a stranger to the country. I've been here many times before, including as a tourist. And I know Southeast Asia a little bit. My last posting was in Malaysia, and immediately before here I was in charge of the Southeast Asia Regional Division. I'm looking forward to doing a lot of travel. I've already had a chance to get down to Ho Chi Minh City twice. I've been to Vung Tau, I've been to Can Tho. I'll be in Da Nang, I think it's next week, so it's great to get out of Hanoi, to meet people, enjoy the food. One thing I've noticed is the coffee, the quality of the coffee in Hanoi is fantastic. There's some really first-class little hipster coffee shops, which I'm enjoying very much.
Moving on to some more serious topics. This month marks the 1-year anniversary of the ASEAN-Australia Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. How do you think this partnership will enhance cooperation between ASEAN and Australia, and also support the ASEAN outlook for the region, for the Indo-Pacific?
It's absolutely key for us. The Indo-Pacific is our region, and at the heart of that is ASEAN. It really is incredibly important for our foreign policy, and I would say it's becoming more important, particularly at a time when the world is an uncertain place, the region is an uncertain place with competition growing. It's important that ASEAN holds the center. It's important that we maintain balance in this part of the world, and that we underline the importance of the rules-based order and respect for sovereignty and independence. That's one of the reasons Vietnam is so important for Australia at this time. It's always been important, and trade and all that is growing very well. But the big picture for us is to make sure that countries like Australia and Vietnam work together well within the ASEAN context to try and maintain peace and security in our region. So we were very proud to be ASEAN's first comprehensive strategic partner, just as a generation ago we were the first dialogue partner for ASEAN. How we're implementing it is there's $154 million that we've committed to a new initiative, which is the Australia for ASEAN initiative, and that will allow us to do more work across a whole range of things: maritime issues, clean energy transition, all the things that people talk about. There's also 100 new higher education scholarships there, and 350 new technical and vocational education scholarships. So there's a lot that's happening, and there's a lot more that's going to be happening.
So moving on to the big topic, climate change. Both Australia and Vietnam have committed to achieving net zero emissions. How are the two countries working together on achieving that goal?
We have a similar dilemma in that we've both committed to net zero. It's going to be tough for Australia because we're a very energy intensive country. We're large, so we have big distances to cover. For Vietnam it'll be hard because Vietnam, it's important that it maintains its growth levels while also meeting these other commitments. So it's important that countries like ours work together. We have some similarities. We both have very long coastlines that will be impacted by climate change. We're both quite fossil fuel intensive in our current economies, but we're both moving towards sustainable energy futures. We're working with Vietnam on that in a few different ways. We're doing some work in the sort of regulatory and policy space. So our energy administration organizations are talking about about carbon markets. We are investing in some of Vietnam's sustainable energy projects. So there's 3 new onshore wind farms that Australia has invested in as part of a consortium. We're talking to Vietnam about the offshore wind as well, which is very prospective in this country. And we've also recently partnered with the Vin Group around green cars and public transport and recharging facilities. So when you see those green buses tearing around Hanoi, think about Australia.
Mm-hmm. So connected to that, we've seen a big increase in FDI because of those net zero commitments. How do you think Vietnam should really take advantage of that inflow and green economic development?
I think Vietnam has a good story to tell, and it has to tell it well as well also, because Vietnam, I think, is probably the most exposed of all the Southeast Asian countries to international corporate FDI. The Vietnamese growth model up until now has been very reliant on those investments, and those investments now are very sensitive to issues of transition and carbon and sustainability. I think Vietnam has made the right decision at the right time. Now it's working hard to deliver on that. Partly, at least, it's a matter of shifting the economy from being the sort of the labour-intensive, export-oriented manufacturing economy to being one that moves further up the value curve. And as it does that, the good thing is Australia will be there at the top of that value curve, where we'll be able to participate more in Vietnam's transition.
Mm-hmm. In terms of that transition, what do you think about the progress Vietnam has made in science and technology development and moving away from a labour-intensive economy? What is that progress?
Well, I've been very impressed. In my very first week here, after presenting credentials, I was at a conference with the Prime Minister about commercialisation of innovation, where Australia has some experience, which we are sharing. The same day I was in a half-day conference with one of the Deputy Prime Ministers on artificial intelligence. And again, we have some connection there. The impression I have is that this government is sincerely interested in innovation, which is important because I think they understand that over the next decade or so, about a third of Vietnam's jobs will be automated. So Vietnam really has to move down that track. One of our flagship programs with Vietnam is called Oz for Innovation, under which we're doing all sorts of projects jointly between our government agencies and between our universities. As I said in the conference about commercialising innovation, I said this to the Prime Minister, Australia has science teams in only 3 embassies around the world: Washington, Singapore and Hanoi. So that tells you a little bit about how we're seeing Vietnam.
So as you mentioned, the government of Vietnam has acknowledged the importance of science and technology, and especially innovation. And this was part of a strategy until 2030. So how is Australia supporting that innovation ecosystem in Vietnam?
We have a really good relationship with the Ministry of Science and Technology. And the minister is the minister that I've met most often. We're doing a lot and we want to do more. So for example, you mentioned Vietnam's innovation strategy to 2030. We participated in the development of that strategy. We've also been cooperating in the dissemination of Vietnam's AI strategy. At one of the conferences I attended, I was able to see some of the actual work that we're doing, which is fascinating. Some of it's using remote sensors and satellites and the interconnectedness, the Internet of Things, to allow Vietnamese experts to monitor the health of forests and natural environments. There's another one that's using similar technologies to allow farmers in the south to monitor water quality, and that enables them to make better decisions about water use. So, there's an awful lot out there that's going on. A lot of it doesn't get headlines, so I appreciate the opportunity to mention these things. And another area, for example, is agriculture. We're both great agricultural nations. In Australia's case, we've got agri-tech is now a very serious business. So we're working with, again, with Vietnamese farmers and the Vietnamese government. There's a lot happening, and there's a lot more happening. And I tell you what, the partnership is very interesting between our two countries.
So you've already mentioned the AusViet Innovation Programme, which is supporting Vietnam's digital future. That was set for the 2018 to 2022 period. What's the plan after that? What's the plan for this program in the future?
Well, the good news is we've decided to extend it out to 2027, so that'll make it a 10-year program. I think the Vietnamese side is happy with that. We're happy with that. We find it a very productive partnership. And the stuff that will happen over that next 5 years will probably be astounding. Just looking at what's been done up until now, I'm really impressed. So I'm looking forward in my time here to tracking the work of our scientists and our innovators to see what else they can do.
Some exciting stuff coming. But that is all of my questions for today. Thank you very much.